on Native youth, the racial and ethnic disparities focus on Native youth. Matt Baker and Misty Flowers are going to have, they invite you to an open, honest, and safe space for conversation and questions about current issues that Native, both urban and reservation youth face in Nebraska. So I will turn it over to Misty and Matt.
Thanks. Okay, so we're going to do a disclaimer right at the beginning. So I am having a hard time concentrating, and so is Matt. He was just telling me he took some medication this morning. It's making him have a hard time focusing, and we received word this morning that the Supreme Court upheld the Indian Child Welfare Act. So I'm trying to keep it together here. My phone is going off, my email, we're trying to get a media release out, social, I'm trying to get things out on social media and all the things. And it's a huge, huge win for Indigenous children and families today.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm Matt. I'll be more of the urban side. I have lived on reservation before, but however the majority of my life has been spent working with, living with natives or living in urban communities, and then I work majority with urban natives just because I'm based here out of country. So we'll kind of feed off each other and kind of go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So my name is Misty Flowers. I'm a member of the Santee Sioux Nation. I did a presentation yesterday, so I feel like this is kind of a follow-up to that, and I always want to tell people that we want to make it a safe space. I would rather people ask me questions that you feel like might be silly. I don't want to say dumb, because there's no dumb questions. Like, any questions that you might have that you may not feel comfortable asking other people. And definitely, we want people to be prepared when working with Native children and families, and to be respectful and appropriate. And so we want this to be that safe space. We really don't have anything like super prepared for today. I have had some thoughts in my head, and they're out the window at this point. A little bit about my background. I have a strong child welfare background, some juvenile justice, domestic violence. I worked for my tribe for 12 years, running our social services department, which included ICWA, CFS, domestic violence. We got a domestic violence shelter going. And then I moved over to the the Nebraska Indian Child Welfare Coalition about 5 years ago. In July, it'll be 5 years ago. We do a lot of education and advocacy on behalf of Native children and families across the state and beyond. We're an Indigenous-led nonprofit organization. We have some brochures on the back as well as some pens if you would like to learn more about our organization. I lived here in Lincoln for about 11 years, but primarily, grew up on my home reservation. I'm fortunate to be able to do the work that I do from home. All of our staff work remote, so I get to live at home, and very thankful for that. But I guess, does anybody have any questions? Comments, those of you that seen my presentation yesterday, maybe we didn't have a chance to talk. Anything you want to follow up on?
Yeah, I had a follow-up sort of from yesterday, and thinking about this recent threat to, tribal sovereignty in the courts, and how that was, how it was upheld. But I'm thinking of another potential threat, as I understand it, but I need to learn more, and that's about blood quantum.
Okay, yeah, that's a big issue. Definitely a huge issue. They say that, a long time ago, that was something that was imposed on our people, really to exterminate. intermarry with other tribes and other races of people. Like that was really a policy of extermination. Well, you know, we are the only people, race of people that has to prove our blood degree. And it's getting, I've definitely seen, I mean, even when we talk about ICWA, you know, children have to be enrolled or eligible for enrollment to be eligible for ICWA. Our ICWA numbers, I know, like from our tribe, are way down. And so we've had some conversation with like our ICWA specialists and those that are, you know, within the tribal leadership now, and how much of that is being affected by blood quantum and tribal membership.
I can feed off that. So the urban Indian side. So that really affects urban Indians, blood quantum a lot. So I know my background, Misty knows her background, but if you actually work in the schools, if you work with urban Indian kids, a lot of them, they might even be full-blood Native and not even know their tribe. They might say, oh, I don't know, right? So they might actually be more Native than me, and they're not enrolled, they don't know their tribe, right? So that's through the blood quantum is also part of the assimilation process, right? So you want to get people to start acting less Native and then more Westernized, right? So for me, my grandfather was full-blood Native, and my grandmother was half. So she was half Native and then half white. My mom's Sicilian, so that puts me a little bit under half Native. So I'm enrolled in Rosebud, but because of this urban nature, I actually have I have more family that lives in Winnebago. And I'm actually more culturally identified with Southern Poncas because of the people that I've been around, right? So already, just me alone, it's like I have all these different factors. And if my wife is Native, and so that's done on purpose, right, to keep the blood quantum alive. But if I were to marry someone and have kids that were not Native, my kids could not be enrolled in my own tribe because they would be just under that 25%. Right? So this is what Misty's talking about. It's how to breed our own people outside of our communities, right? It's to get them, to extract them outside the communities. And so for me, it's important to identify what Native is, because I think a lot of people who aren't in our community have a hard time understanding what a Native person actually is. To me, now, we're a very diverse community, and so Misty might have a different opinion than I have. Randy over here, who I should be learning from, he's sitting there, he might have a different opinion than I have. And so culturally though, if Randy talks, I need to listen, and I need to take in that wisdom. So for me, I just wanted to bring that out because for me, I should be learning from Randy. So I just appreciate you for showing up, and all of my relatives that are here. I appreciate you guys. So blood quantity with urban Indians is a big deal. And how the school systems track Native people is different than how we identify who are Native. So if I have a great grandparent who might have been a Cherokee princess, it does not make you Native.
I'll vote on that.
Right? Because for us, I understand that people might have Native blood, but for the first conversation, for someone to come up to me or people in my community, and then they say, oh, my great grandmother was so-and-so, we're the same. Well, no, we're not the same, and that's okay. We can relate with each other without feeling that you have to identify with where I come from. And so, for me, a Native person is, so I don't know if I have the terminology right, but I was always taught So there is a difference between a skin and a blood. So a skin is a native person who is racially native, but also culturally native. And there's a broad spectrum of culture, what culturally native means. But you're competent, or you're wanting to live in and be a part of the native community. A blood, not a gang member, but a blood would be someone that might have a little bit of blood quantity, but they don't live the life of a native person. They don't understand what it means to be a native person, and they don't really try to be a native person. Does that sound right?
And they're the first in line when the tribe's giving something out.
And they're the first in line. So it's really complex. I also want to just talk, I'm going to go on this, I always go on these runs. This, just precursor, I work for the government, I work for the police department, so when I start bashing the government, just know I work for the government, right? So I'm not like totally, I don't want to overthrow it, but I do have my ideas about it. I forgot what I was just going to say. Say so around. You go ahead.
You said you said you didn't want to talk bad about the government.
That one, but what was it talking about before? I was going to say something bad about the government. Go ahead. Yeah, it was a disclaimer. I'll get back to it. You beat on me, and then I'll get back to it. Where was I going with that? Oh, this is what I was going to talk about. We live in a time, and so for me, I've always learned every word has power. Every word has power, and how we use those words affect how we see power and how we identify. It's like throwing words are suppressing our thoughts and our emotions, and then sending it through the vibrations so the rest and relating to the rest of the world. So a big word I have issue how non-natives, the one word I have issues that non-natives use is the word tribal. I hate it because I look at the government, I look at the politics, and everyone's so divided, and no one can get along, and then the first word they say, oh, everyone's acting tribal. Everyone's acting tribal. Look at, everyone's tribal. And then so for me, I look at that and I'm like, this is the assimilation process. This is divide and conquer. It has nothing to do with tribes. I come from a tribe. I understand what it means to be a tribe. If I went to Santee right now, I'd be taken care of. If I went to Oklahoma right now, I'd be taken care of. We have different cultures. We have different ways of doing things. If I went to California, it'd take me 10 minutes to find someone, a native, and they'd take care of me. Totally different cultures, totally different ways of looking at things. That's what tribal is. Tribal is about leaning on each other, regardless of our differences, regardless of our blood quantities. And so I just want to talk about that too, is tribal. So erasing thoughts of what precursors of what people think tribe is. Because there's sophistication. We've had governments here that have lasted for 10,000 years, well beyond any European government has ever lasted, and we're still here. And just because we're a small number doesn't mean that sophistication's still not here. And those, in the culture, and us understanding our own history and how we treat each other. Because how we treat each other now with that same respect is how we've always treated each other with that same respect. And so when I listen to people talk, and so this is really damaging, especially towards urban Indians, when they're being taught westernized culture, taught about them. So when westernized culture teaches about them, because that's all they have. And so growing up, if you're a native youth growing up in the system, and all you're learning about is what someone else thinks about you, which is always wrong, by the way, none of it's ever right. Now what does that do to your ego? What does that do to you? Because that's all you've learned. You learn that we're less sophisticated. You learn that we are always at battle with each other. You learn that you did maybe learn a little bit about boarding school, right? It's all negative, but none of it's even accurate. None of it's accurate. People don't know Lakota's a nation. It's not even, and then there's tribes within there, right? So we have a nation, a huge nation. And so I just wanted to bring that, is about, we have to understand what tribal is. Tribal is not less. I'm not hating on westernized culture, but it's not less than. It's equal. It's equal. And through the assimilation process, which was done on purpose, it's been suppressed. But we're still here. We're not conquered people. We're not conquered. We're here, and we're gonna stay here. And we've resisted assimilation for 500-some years. And I imagine for the next 500 years, we're still going to resist against that assimilation process. Go ahead, sorry, I go on these minutes.
If there's a question back there.
So Matt, how do you recommend going forward and working with outstate Nebraska, not just Lincoln and Omaha, but outstate, north, south, west Nebraska, to introduce these and promote these concepts and help Native juveniles in those communities?
I don't know how to answer this, but what I can say is, so the dynamics are going to be different from a youth on a reservation compared to a youth that's living in the city. So for me, the big fight for my relatives that live on the reservation is a fight for independence. So a fight for the government and state out of our business, to appreciate and to accept the treaties that the United States government signed. So for me, that's the fight with reservations, right? Is that independence, that sovereignty. Whereas if you're an urban Indian, your fight's going to be very similar to maybe like a black person's fight for equality, right? So those are two different fights. And so our communities are constantly fighting both of those sides. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe you want to speak.
Yeah, I think it makes total sense, because the issues that are on the reservation versus in the urban areas, and even, or I would just say off reservation in general, they're gonna be different. But then, again, like some of the issues are gonna be the same. I guess I would say that, culturally based services, they're few and far between, but they exist, they're out there. There are some service providers that can do counseling by telehealth. They may not be out there in western Nebraska, but there are some services that do exist, and supporting, whatever they can do, probation officers, caseworkers, whatever, can do to help support, to put culture into, if that's what they want. I should say, if that's what they want, asking them, like, what's gonna help you? Because I've had some families that would come right out and tell me, like, we had child welfare cases going on, and they were, supposed to be going through a case plan, rather than having just a regular standard case plan, parenting classes, drug and alcohol assessment, whatever, and they would straight out come and tell me that, Misty, I'm not going to go to that program because it's not going to help me. Well, what's going to help you? Going to sweats and ceremonies is what's going to help me stay sober. Okay, let's put it in there. It gets a little bit harder to, track and all of that, but as system service providers, our goal should be to get to the root of the problems and the issues, and not just put a Band-Aid on it, or to, so it should be to help families heal. And I guess the other thing that I would say about that, is like we're in this, I would call like a cultural resurgence. So like in terms of our mental health, and there's I was listening to Dr. Joseph Gahn. He's 3 affiliated tribes. Anyway, he was talking about how there's been, kind of 4 eras of mental health. There was pre-colonial, and this was like he was talking to some tribal members back home, and this isn't the terms that they use, but he broke it down, like to put it into simple terms: pre-colonial, post-colonial, and then like that historical trauma period from from colonization. Wait, I got that wrong. Pre-colonial colonization, that post-colonial, which is historical trauma, and then the cultural resurgence that's going to happen, because we as Indigenous people, there's a lot of things that happen within our culture, our teachings, language, even, we say that our languages have a spirit. And, we're learning those languages and we're practicing those things and learning about who we are as Indigenous people and the connection that we have, that's healing. It's naturally healing. And so, they say we're going to go through this cultural resurgence of that's how, we're going to heal from all of the things that have happened. And we see that within our population of healing. There's more, I've seen it with our young people back home, at least, where they're more excited. They're excited to wear ribbon skirts. They've learned how to make ribbon skirts. They're learning how to bead and to sew and to do all of those things. They're excited about it. They're excited about learning language and learning how to sing and do all of the things. And I was so excited. I met a young man the other day. I'm teaching a sewing class at home, and he came and he's going to make a ribbon shirt because they're going to Washington D.C. for Unity. But he's excited about learning about our medicines. There's so many things that are culturally based that have been lost for a long time. And so, teaching this class about medicines, I'm not no expert about medicines, and I'm learning right along with them. This is just something personally, I'm interested in want to learn more about, and so I've listened to people and taking notes and putting it all together, and he was really excited about that, and that made me really excited. We became best friends that day.
Oh.
I've got a question, kind of feeding off of, or not feeding off of, but going back to things like inclusion and exclusion. What if you're working with a young person and they are mixed race, they only have a percentage of native blood, and they feel excluded by their own tribe because they are only, they only have a certain percentage, but they are invested in learning about their culture, being a part of their culture. But they're met with those barriers, and they don't feel like there's anybody they can connect to, or they're turned away. How do you handle that? How do you coach a young person that might be experiencing that, and also understanding, well, yes, I understand everything that you're saying as far as wanting to preserve the bloodline and looking the way you look versus, oh, I have native blood, but I'm not a part of the culture.
The simple answer to that, they just probably haven't talked to the right person.
Yeah. Well, so how do you connect them to the right people?
But I was just saying, get up here, I'll say thank you. And this is what we do. These are young people. I'm proud of these guys.
Yeah.
For being up here, way above their time. When I was his age, I didn't get to do what he's doing today. So he's going to be a great leader. She's going to be a great leader. We are a reflection of our elders. I don't know anything. I only somebody said, sit down, listen, and I learned something. And so I'm just telling you things that I've learned that are really the knowledge is how we pass it on. We have an oral history. You can't pull a book off. You can't watch a movie. You have to live it. And a lot of times that's the challenge that we have. I graduated in 1973 from a school in Winnebago, half non-native. Man, I had some best non-native friends in my life. I learned to live with non-natives. they like to work. I like to work. I like money, you know, and that's what they like to do. But they became my best friends. Half of the school. Now today in Winnebago, 99% Native. When I went to school, there was no cultural class. Now we have cultural class. They're doing that now at our school. I'm so proud of them today, seeing that. And when it comes to people like that, you know, you just have to find the right person. You know, don't never give up. You know, whatever tribe they are. And that's the big of that. We never know who our children are gonna love, who they're gonna marry. And we have to accept them no matter how you, because we were back in the olden days, they're just part of our family. They didn't care what tribe you were. You know, we take you under our wing, like he was saying. Treat you like somebody. And that's what we said, that life is simple, you know, like that. And a lot of those times I come from, my dad went to boarding school and he told me stories. I said, how come you didn't teach me Native? How come you didn't teach me my language? He said, well, they broke me. That's what do you mean they broke me? They washed my mouth out with soap when he was at boarding school. So I didn't get to learn it. You know, it wasn't his fault, you know, so I never held that against him. But the reason we have urban Indians today, and some of you don't know, they had a thing called the Relocation Act. Anybody ever hear that? The Relocation Act. So what that was is that they put all this money aside, and any natives want to get off the reservation, we're going to send you to California, Chicago, wherever, pay for everything. And that was another way of trying to assimilate us. But little did they know, we popped up some more tribes, you know, in these towns, urban Indian centers and all that. So it was really kind of a how would you say, a double-edged sword for that. And a lot of it with what I'm working on, a truancy officer. I'm also with a juvenile probation officer working in school. And a lot of it is that our kids miss a lot of school because of our native, our culture. Because when somebody passes in our tribe, you know, it's a 4-day event. We never leave our loved ones alone. We're always staying up all night, eating different times until they go into the ground. They would call it a doorway. And so that's why our children miss a lot of school. So whether they're going to school here in Lincoln or in Winnebago, we still have the same issue, kids are missing school. And so those are the things when it comes to our cultures, like when it comes to blood quantum, you know, I've been doing my studies. Do you know what the Ogallala's doing?
I don't.
Okay, Ogallala's got smart. They call lineage. So there's no blood quantum. Oh, that was my uncle. I'm good. We don't have to worry about blood quantum. Some tribes are getting smart because that's the way to beat that thing. And eventually I hope that the people that don't know their culture, they just have to find the right. Ikwa for me is kind of a double-edged sword, you know, because I've seen it that some reservations, you know, they don't have no place to place kids. You know, there's no families that can take them. And then I see in the world out here, I see non-natives. I see my European relatives raising children of color. That's okay, you know, because somebody loves you. Love is important in a person's life, especially when you're small. You gotta have that love till you get to a certain age. And that's why, hey, there's some good non-native parents out there. I went to school with them. I can say they're good, you know, because culture comes from your tribe. Culture, you can learn. I can teach you culture. I can teach you culture. So it's something that you just hang around. Hang around me all day, you're going to learn culture. And that's how it's taught. And it starts, if you're lucky, you can learn it from the ground up. And that's where I think the tribes, you know, the reservation tribes, Omaha Reservation, the Winnebago Reservation, the Ponca Reservation, and the Santee Reservation, kind of like sanctuaries. You know, they get to stay in their culture. They get to learn these things and do dinners and do things that keep us together as a tribe and not let the outside world influence us so much. And so we're lucky that way. So I'm really proud of these two young people up here. I was listening to them, I was like, wow, I wish I could have did that when I was that age, you know? So I really like it for you guys for doing what you're doing at your age and representing. But again, I just wanted to share some stuff with you because, and help them out a little bit, you know? Yeah.
I have an unrelated question. It's a juvenile justice specific question. So I know broadly in the juvenile justice field, there's been a lot of conversation about sex trafficking. And I wanted to know if there's a connection between missing and murdered Indigenous women and juveniles. Are we seeing a higher incidence among children who are in the juvenile justice system and the child welfare system?
Definitely, because you know those that are the young women that are at most risk are those that have been victimized or have gone through a lot of trauma, and so of course those I mean, and don't get me started about how like the child welfare system and the juvenile justice system, how we're re-victimizing and re-victimizing. But that's what I would say is yes, definitely there is a higher connection of those that are in child welfare and juvenile justice. They're at higher risk because they have all of those, those higher risk factors. And so definitely. And I also wanted to say to your question, and there's a thing called reservationitis. That comes from that term comes from, it's like that, I don't know, I guess you could say it's a made up term about, that came from one of my mentors, Philip Whiteman. He's Northern Cheyenne. And he would say that term, it's like that crabs in the bucket mentality, like nobody's gonna get above, or we're just going to keep pulling people down. It's a result of all of the historical and intergenerational trauma that our people have gone through years and years and years, and probably that blood quantum thing contributes to it. Because I've heard elders talk, and in a respectful way I listen. They have their thoughts on the blood quantum and how we need to keep our bloodline strong. I agree. To a certain extent, but then on the other side of things, like we're keeping people out at the same time. Maybe if they identify with being Santi or Ho-Chunk or Umaha, whatever tribe it is, we keep them out. And that really, I feel like it goes against who we are, those original teachings and values as Indigenous people. So there's been so much damage that has been done to our people, and so like it's like reservationitis, I think that's a good term for it. But that's where I say we relearn our original teachings, our values as Indigenous people that come from our tribes, our nations, who we are as Native people. We shouldn't be acting, we shouldn't be like that. We should be welcoming and welcome them in and teach them what we know. Because that's another thing that I've heard some of our elders say too, is what we know, it's not for us to take with us and to hold on tight. What we know is to share with everybody, because I've also seen, some of our elders pass away, and when they pass away, those languages die with them, those teachings die with them. And a lot of important information, language keepers, knowledge keepers. So anyway, you made me think about that term reservationitis.
I'm going to jump on this question here, because worked with the Corps for 14 years, being a truant officer. The young people, especially young ladies, when they're in the CPS system or DHS system, and they're being moved from one caseworker to another family, and that's where that all starts. There's no stability, especially for young people, to get that being about themselves, somebody cares about me. Because when I said a kid gets to I don't give a shit mode because nobody gave a shit about me, it's really hard to change that. And that's where that nurturing part comes in early in their life. Because imagine yourself going through 5 different families when you were young, before you even got to 17, man, oh my goodness. It would be so hard, so that they turn to drugs and alcohol. And then it's really hard, because they're trying to fix them, that feeling they have, that emptiness they have. That's why I'm learning right now today that's why the tribe, the Omaha tribe, the Santee tribe, one big tribe, have to be in the big cities, in in some shape or form. We have to have a coalition in these big cities where we meet with you guys and we find out what these people are doing and try to help them. It's never gonna change, because what I've learned working at the school, when things get tough on the school or on these families because they're struggling with things, they flee, they take off, and they can just go into a city and nobody knows where they're at until they get in trouble. And so that's why I really think we're gonna have to work with something. This is what happened today, is that a coalition needs to be started between the 3 tribes of Ponca to meet with the city people that are in charge of our children down here. And that would really help change a lot, so. Anyway, hey, good job, guys. I'm gonna sit right back down.
I just wanted to touch down on like sex trafficking. So I've had 2 nieces that ended up missing, and then were later found a year later that were both sex trafficked here out of Lincoln, but they had ties to reservation too, and so it's prominent in our community. Randy had talked about funerals. Misty had talked about generational trauma. So I just want to touch down. I'm not going to get into too much details because I'm going to talk about my own family and how much time my kids have missed the last 2 years alone. So if you look at my dad's side, nobody has ever lived past the age of 55 the past 100 years. That's assimilation. And that's commonplace. We go to so many funerals of young people, it blows white people away. 2 years ago, I had a sister, 22 years old, committed suicide. Shortly after that, I had a nephew, 18 years old, who was killed by law enforcement. And then I had another nephew who was killed in town by a white person. Hit and run. When the cops found the white kid, they escorted the white kid back to school. His name was Nate. I just had another nephew 2 weeks ago. Had an overdose. It was what are they putting in? Fentanyl overdose. So everyone in my family dies early. My brother, 41 years old, is the oldest member of my family on my dad's side. So that's what generational trauma looks like. So I'm grown, so I can understand these things, but my little guys, they go to all these funerals. They see their brothers and their sisters and their brothers pass away at such a young age. And then they come back to school in the public school system, and now me and mom are in trouble just for them going to their own relatives' funerals. I've had my sister has been fired from 2 jobs because of all the funerals she's had to go to. They didn't believe it. They thought she was making it up. I'm gonna just give the people I work for credit. Never once have they asked me, why are you leaving? And so I understand I'm the front lines of holding cops accountable and understanding what's going on. I think that's why my voice is needed at the police department. They accept that. If you saw me going on my rants yesterday about numbers, I'm doing it in front of the people actually giving me grant money, so I just appreciate that. But I also wanted to show that dynamic. When we talk about racism, when we talk about that, I can just tell you as a Native person, that comes every day, every day. And I can just tell you as a male, I used to have my head shaved bald, because when I was a kid and I moved to Lincoln, all the other kids used to call me faggot and throw dirt in my hair. So I used to shave my head bald. But it's funny because when my head's shaved bald, I'm not a threat to anybody. But now I got my braids and I got my long hair. Weekly, every week, I go park in my own parking lot at work. And it's connected to a big building, city building, you know, got people going in and out of court. Almost at least 3-4 times a year, someone tells me I can't park in my own parking lot. They say court people park over there. People that have to go to court park over there. For me, I'm not an alcoholic, but I like a beverage just like everybody else. For me, as a native man with my braids, to go into a Hy-Vee and go pick up maybe a 6-pack, maybe I only want one of them. The stares I get, the looks I get. So when we talk about that and those things, I just think people need to understand what trauma looks like and what being, I can only speak for myself. It's big in our community, I speak for myself. And then beautiful people like Randy can come up and give us wisdom. That's my lane, that's my role. But I speak for myself and what I go through. My son's hair is long just like mine. Guess what he gets called at school? Same word. I'll just leave it at this.
I appreciate that. And, you know, yesterday I talked about how we become experts of trauma because we live it. I mean, it's constant, it's every day. You know, within my tribe, within the last couple of weeks, this week we had 3 deaths within 2 days. And, you know, so it's trying to find a balance all the time, you know, of like, well, I've got to go to Lincoln and I've got to go do these presentations, or that I stay home and try to help my relatives do what they need to do and help take care of their families and the spirit of their loved ones. That's what those funerals are about. It's about taking care of the spirit. I don't know, there's so many things, like we come from a whole totally different perspective, worldview, you know, and everything is almost, you know, almost the complete opposite. You know, I've been to, you know, when my biological dad passed away, my mom was trying to help prepare me for when I was going to go to Oregon, because he was married to a non-native woman. And she said, just know that things are going to be different than what you're used to. And it was. She wasn't even going to have not even a funeral service, like a prayer or anything, until like 2 weeks later. And this was around Christmas time. I get it. People want to, you know, celebrate, you know, Christmas and whatever. But for us, like that, it doesn't matter what holiday is going on. And it was something I struggled with in my family. They were calling and checking on me, texting me. They said, just come home. We'll take care of it when you get home. So when I got home, I cut my hair, and we had ceremony to take care of my dad's spirit. And meanwhile, that non-native, my stepmom, she was accusing us of stealing. She got all mad at us. She came in and she said, she was accusing us of stealing. And I had to tell her, there's nothing that we want. My dad told us that no matter what, he said, just let it go. He said, I have what I need right here with you girls. He said, let it go. So we did. She didn't realize that we were getting ready to get together a giveaway, because I wanted to thank her and my step siblings for taking care of my dad all those years. That's what I was doing, but I got accused of stealing from her. And I told my stepbrother, I said, just so you know, when she said she was not to be taking anything, I said, this is what we were doing. We were getting ready for this. And it's just totally different world perspective that we come from. And it's always trying to find a balance of, you know, between being native and being, you know, having to take care of responsibilities of, you know, work and school and all of those things that we've got to do yet to live in the 21st, you know, 2023. helping our children to manage those things of how do you balance all of that? How do you manage all of that? Because they're not going to understand that our ceremonies will go late into the night. There's certain things that got to be done at certain times. And so our kids can't make it to school. We may not be able to come to work or whatever. That we have responsibilities within that. And I would also mention, like that connection that they talk about with, the land and all of those, we say Wama Kashkan, all of the animal beings, like it's true. I've seen it. I was walking last night and I seen this eagle, or not eagle, it was an owl sitting up in this tree. And I kept walking and I was like, So I started to make a prayer, so I seen that. And pretty soon I heard all of the Zinkara, all of the birds just talking like that. And I got an ugly feeling. I don't even know what was down further, but I turned around. And I was like, nope, they're telling me I need to turn around. So I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna go back. But those things are true, they're real. To some people, they're just singing. But they were trying to tell me something last night. Something was rushing around in the trees, and I just got an ugly feeling. I was like, yeah, I don't want to know what's further down this path. But anyway, we have maybe a few more minutes. Does anybody have?
I was gonna go on one more thing. Because I think this is really important, because when I work with Native kids, and I think that the system puts our ceiling so low. They put our ceiling so low. So the system's willing to go and help out a Native kid or help out a Native family if they have really serious issues. Or maybe they're causing problems in the school system or in the juvenile justice system, and all of a sudden they get a little bit of resources. But when they get up a little bit and they're no longer a problem, then all those resources go away. And I think something that's equally as bad as not helping those people is not helping people, not sending resources to the most brilliant kids in our community. Because they have the same struggles that we just talked about. They have those struggles. I have kids that I know that should be at MIT. But because they didn't have the resources and they weren't a problem in the system, they never got the resources to go to MIT. No one ever took them along and said, man, this kid, I think this kid's a genius. I think this kid's a genius. You know what, let's give him some services. Because as we know, in our community, it only takes one or two of the finest people to really push communities forward. But what happens when all those kids, I'm speaking for urban, right? But what happens when the majority of those kids get left behind because they're not a problem? This idea that we get to go to school for free is not true. It's not true. There's a school, and then there's a few other schools, but those are people. So that's what I want us to really wrap our heads around, is just because a Native kid's not a problem in the school system or in the juvenile justice system doesn't mean that kid doesn't need resources. Because who knows, that might be the next Famous Dave. People don't know Famous Dave's name. It might be somebody. But I'm tired of seeing kids in my community not get a fair shake when they're the light in our community. They need the resources too. We have a school in Lincoln named Standing Bear, and it probably will have 0 Native kids there. And so I've been working with the school system, and I'm trying to say, hey, why don't you go get all of the really smart Native kids, get them, the ones, because we do have kids, we have a lot of our people in our community that are, academically great. Why don't you get all these kids and then give them all the resources that all the white kids get at Standing Bear? Why don't you use how they do in class, and then why don't you be the one to start contacting these colleges for them? Why don't you figure out how to get them scholarships? Why don't you do that? It's like our value has to be more than only when we're a problem. Because when we're doing good, boy, no resources. So that's my thing. Really, I challenge us to not just worry about the issues of Native people, but see the brilliance. And how do we get that brilliance, especially of our youth? How do we get the most brilliant ones? How do we get them fair resources?
I'm gonna jump in real quick, because I know it's all over, and I'm glad you're saying that, because maybe somebody in here knows this name. Who knows the name Frank Lemire? Okay, Frank Lemire was, his 4th memorial is coming up this weekend. And so when our relatives pass away, we remember him for 4 years. Try to remember him for 4 years. So we're gonna eat with his wife and his children, and we're gonna talk about him, of the things he left with us. But he was, he used to say, we gotta make somebody feel uncomfortable in order for things to change. And for those you don't know, over by Pine Ridge, there was a place called White Clay, and that was terrible for the Ogallala people, and he finally got it shut down over the years. So a big applause for Frank Lemire today. I really wanted to make sure, because he reminds me he might be the next Frank Lemire, you know, that makes people feel uncomfortable. And that's how things change. So I just wanted to mention his name, so you guys know we're having a 4th memorial on Sunday morning in Winnebago.
And just to speak on that, I mean, we've had, if you look at the amount of amazing people that have come out of the state alone, it's incredible, especially in the Native community. You got Frank Lemire, John Trudell, you got all these brilliant people here, right here, right here. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, we had a lot of, the way that our tribes were a long time ago were, we had ways of living, we had teachings, we had values that were taught to us and that we lived by, that made our communities function in a very good way, very positive way. And so we're working at bringing those things back. And when you talk about brilliance, there were things that we had, like I was talking about medicines that we've had, things that we've had for years and years and years, and some of it has been lost, but we have some of the most amazing things, those teachings and beliefs within our people that make, where science is starting to catch up to us. Like sage, for example, it's a natural antimicrobial, has antimicrobial properties. And so in terms of COVID, we have medicines to combat those things. Sage purifies the air. And they're starting to recognize those things with research, scientific research, to know those Indians really knew what they were talking about. But I appreciate everybody hanging with us today and going on a circular journey, because that's how we are as Indigenous people. We are circular thinkers, and so one thing makes us think of something else. And thank you to Aaron and the rest of and Amy and the rest of the crew for putting together a great conference and asking us to do this presentation. Thank you.